With the main module configuration in place, we can now load a top-level view model of our choosing. And I still tend to think of this top-level view model as the app or app view model, but the view model doesn't contain all the application features. In larger applications, you can't keep adding features to the same view model. You need to break things up. Typically, I want my app view and my app view model to be responsible just for those features that are common across the entire application, like the top-level navigation menu. Because it doesn't matter where in the application the user is, the nav menu will always be on the page, and will probably need some support from a view model to show the available options to the user. Then when it comes to specific features, like listing all the movies or editing a specific movie, I expect this app or this shell to contain a placeholder. The placeholder is an area in my app view where I want different features to appear as the user navigates through the application. That way I can build a large application by building small pieces, like the ability we have now to list all available movies. That's one view and view model pair, or one module. And when it comes to showing the details for a specific movie, I want that to be a different module. And then I can have a module for editing a movie or creating a movie, and maybe other functionality, like showing a dynamic About Us page and a register page and a reviews page and so on. And each of these pieces are separate classes, separate view models, separate views, and they get loaded into the placeholder at the appropriate time. That's the job of client-side routing. Just like in server-side routing, it's the ability to inspect the URL and direct the request to the appropriate resource that will satisfy the request. I might want the user to go to my site, and when there is a #list at the end of the URL, that will show a list of all the movies. But if they click a link to #about, then I want the About Us module to be loaded. And this is what we can achieve with the Aurelia router. We can tell the framework to load specific view models when the user comes to a certain URL, and when the URL changes, like from /list to /about, the router can remove a view model, take it out of the DOM, take it out of that placeholder, throw it away, and then load the new view model in the new view. What we're going to see is how Aurelia can do this. We can build small independent view models to list and detail and edit movies and show an About Us page, and then configure a component known as the router, and it will be able to use information in the URL to load the appropriate view model and view into that placeholder. It will do that by looking for a custom element. The element name is router-view. This element is somewhat similar to the compose element that we looked at in the last video module, because it allows us to build a page and a UI by composing a view model, like the movie list view model, into a larger view, the app view. In fact, with Aurelia, it's really easy to do this recursively and have child routers inside of a router. But we're just going to use top-level routing, and unlike Compose, this router view composition, it's done by matching against the URL, and that integrates directly with the browser history and bookmarks, as you might have seen with routing engines and other client-side frameworks. So let's add this capability to our application, and I also want to do some refactoring to make it easier to build additional features into the app. In the application, what I want to do to scale out the features is create a folder per feature. This isn't something that's required. I could certainly place all of the files and all of the views, all of the view models inside of the www root folder. But I think there are some obvious advantages to organizing your views and view models and other components by feature. So if I create a folder called Movies, the idea is I can keep everything related to movies, like the movie data class we created in the last module. I can keep all those things in this folder, and I'm going to create another folder, and I'm going to call it About. And the plan is ultimately I'm going to have two links in the navigation menu. One link that says Movies, one link that says About. And when the user clicks on one of those links, they'll be navigating between two different feature areas. One area that shows movie information, one area that shows About information. The other component I have that's already related to movie information is this app view model and app view. This is really all about displaying movie information. And I want to move this functionality into the movies folder also, but I'm going to do a copy operation this time instead of moving it there because I'm still going to need a top-level app view model. This is going to be my shell with a placeholder that other features plug into. And this view and view model that was formerly the app view model, I'm going to rename it because now it's really about listing movies. So I'm going to call this list.html and list.js. And inside of the view, I don't want list.html to be concerned about the nav bar. That's going to be the app's responsibility. So I'm going to take the navigation bar out of this file. All we're left with is just the markup that is concerned with displaying a table of movies. Save this file. Let me also open list.js. I want to change the name of this class to list. And you can name this whatever you want, movie list, list movies, but all the functionality is going to stay the same inside of here. And now it's going to be my responsibility to set up the router and set up the navigation links so that I can get to this movie information. And that's going to be the responsibility of the app view model. So no longer will this view be concerned with showing movies. It's only going to be concerned with showing the navigation bar and then including that placeholder where other views will plug in. And that placeholder is the router view element that Aurelia provides. So this app view is in good shape. And now let's turn to the view model, which is no longer concerned with retrieving movie information. So I'm going to take out all of the code inside of here. And instead of movie information, it is going to be this view model's responsibility to configure the router. And again, this is a place where Aurelia uses convention. If a view model exposes a method called configureRouter, Aurelia will automatically invoke that method and pass in two parameters. One is a config object that you can use to express the rules for routing, and the second parameter will be an instance of the router itself. And having access to the router can be quite useful. In fact, I'm going to save off the router into a field in my class because ultimately what I can do now is make that a part of my view model, and I'll have the ability from my view to write binding expressions that use information in the router to display things like navigation links. So I have my router saved off, and now I can use this config object to map my routes. And creating routes is very conceptually similar to creating routes with a server-side framework or with other client-side frameworks that do client-side routing. Basically, for each route, I'm going to have an object that contains some information about what the URL should look like, and then some instructions about what to do when the URL and the route match. So for example, if I said the route was about, the Aurelia router would know when the URL ends with #about to follow the rest of the instructions that are in this object. If I said something like details/:ID, then the colon indicates a parameter placeholder. So Aurelia would look for something like details/3, meaning we want to see the details for the movie with an ID of 3. And now do what I say over here. And if I just leave this empty, I'm essentially saying here's what to do at the root of this application. I can also have an array here and say here's what to do at the root, or anytime you are at list, because I want to list movies. And now what should Aurelia do? At a minimum here, I probably want to specify a module ID because this tells Aurelia and the router what module to load up. And now after the refactoring, I have a list module inside of my movies folder. So I could tell Aurelia, please load up movies/list, load up that module. Again, no .js extension there. Aurelia can also set the title of the page when we are on this route, and I can also include some additional properties. I'm going to include one called navTrue, and that's some additional information that will be entered with that route. I'm going to be able to use that information to build a navigational menu. There's only a subset of my routes that I actually want to appear as top-level links, and it's those routes where I'm going to specify navTrue, and we'll come back in just a bit and build the view, and we'll get to see how easy it is to generate links from the routing information. I'm going to include one additional route. Let's call it about. And the module ID for this will ultimately be about/about. Currently my about folder is empty, so this is a view model and view that we will have to create, but we'll get to that. But I just wanted to give this one a title. Let's call it about, and also say nav as true. And I'll format things just a little bit so we can have everything on the screen at once. But these are the two routes that I want to work with and start with. So I'll save this file. Let's change our view around to actually consume this information. What I want to do here after the navbar header is build a menu. I'll do that with an unordered list that has a class of nav, navbar nav. Those are some bootstrap classes that will help me out. And inside of here, I want list items, but I want them to repeat. I want to repeat for row of router.navigation. So essentially what is happening is when I build out my routing configuration, when I make an entry that says nav is true, then the router will take this configuration information and it will expose a collection, navigation, just with those entries where nav is true. So I can iterate over that and I can build out anchor tags that say, please bind the href to row.href. So just like we did with movies, I can essentially write a loop over this collection, and I can think of row as a local variable that will point to each item as it stamps out these DOM elements. I went to build an anchor tag that uses the href of that row and the title of that row. And now let's save all of our work and refresh the application. And I now have a menu bar with links in it. I'm still displaying my movie information because I'm essentially at the root of this application. But I should also be able to go to /list and get that information. And once we build this about page, I should be able to navigate over there and see that view in ViewModel. We'll do that in the next clip, and we'll also make it obvious where we currently are by highlighting some of these menu items using Bootstrap styles and router information.